Great. So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Elaine Chang. I'm the Senior Manager for Global Market Development at TaroWorks. And we are super excited to be announcing TaroWorks 4.5 coming out soon. And so in advance of that, we're doing just sharing what the new features are. So just to give some background, all of these features are really based on user feedback. So we appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten, and just a reminder to please keep it coming because that's how we improve our product. I think you'll find that these products or this new release and the new features are all around offering more flexibility and giving a cleaner experience for the administrators and the field agents. So hopefully you'll find that to be the case. Before I hand it over to Erin, our technical account manager, who will be taking us through each of these features, I'll just go over a few of the housekeeping rules. So this session is being recorded and will be circulated afterwards. Everybody will be on mute throughout the webinar unless you specifically raise your hand for a question, in which case I'll unmute you. Or if you have a question, you can also type it into the Q&A window. And Erin will be paused at the end of each feature for questions. And a little bit, something that we're doing a little bit differently this time is we really targeted mostly other TaroWorks users for this webinar. And so feel free to ask more technical questions. You're in company of fellow TaroWorks users. So I think with that, let me turn it over to Erin.
Great, thanks Elaine. Hi everybody, my name is Erin and I'm on the Professional Services and Customer Support team here at TaroWorks. Today, as Elaine said, we're going to walk through some of the features that are coming out in TaroWorks 4.5. So a few of our new features are dynamic operations, improvements on selecting multiple records from the drill down hierarchy, hidden questions, and folders for jobs and surveys. So we'll start with dynamic operations. Dynamic operations, or I like to call it dynamic ops, will allow you to do more flexible validations and also to do calculations in your surveys. Validations allow you to check responses that are entered against a rule or several rules. And these rules can have references to responses from earlier questions. Calculations also allow you to use responses from earlier questions, but in order to come up with a value or calculate a value with which you can populate a survey question. So let's start off by looking at some examples of how this feature is used in a sales order survey. So I have my TaroWorks jobs, and I have a job to create sales orders for solar products that I'm selling to members of a savings group. So first I'm going to select who I'm selling to, and then the products I'm selling today. And now we're at the first page of our survey, or the start of the sales order. So we have a couple of different validations that are running in this page using dynamic operations. The first is for the date question. We have a rule that says we're only going to allow sale dates that are today or earlier. So let's put something that's going to break that rule. And then also we have the customer's name that's automatically populated, but we want to also confirm the customer's mobile number or ask for their mobile number. We're going to have them enter it twice so we can be sure that it's correct. And then we have a validation rule that's going to run and make sure that those are the same values. So if I enter one, and then another, let's say I make a mistake. Now we're going to try to proceed to the next page. So we hit the first issue, and as you can see, there's a custom error message that was associated with that validation. So it's saying the order date must be today or earlier. So now we can fix that. Again, if we try to proceed, it'll go on to the next error. You can see the two numbers aren't the same, and the error message says the mobile numbers are not the same. So we can go ahead and correct that as well. So when a validation rule breaks, you'll see the question is highlighted in orange and with some custom instructions of how you should fix it. Now we're going to take a look at dynamic operations calculations. So in this page, we're going to be asked how many do we want of each product. So we'll put in some quantities that the John wants to order of each product. And in the next page, we can see a dynamic operations calculation run. So for each line item or each iteration of this repeat section, it's taking the price times the quantity and letting us know what the line total is in dollars. When a calculation runs, the result is populated into the survey question and it's not editable. In the next view, we're going to look at the final page, which is a sales order summary. And we've got a few different calculations running on this page as well. The first is the sales order number. So we use dynamic operations here to generate a unique identifier for the sales order. In this case, I used a combination of the member ID for John and a timestamp. The customer name was just pulled in from the drill-down hierarchy, so there's no dynamic operations in play there. For the subtotal, we've run across all the line totals for each product and sum them into the subtotal. The tax is a calculation of a percentage multiplied by the subtotal, and then the total amount due is the subtotal plus the tax. So you can see all those amounts in dollars. So I just wanted to give you a visual of dynamic operations in action before we talked about a few more use cases. Now that we've looked at the mobile side, let's take a look at how you configure this in Salesforce. So if I look at my sales order survey, we can see we have a dynamic operation set for the date, as we saw the error be thrown on the mobile side. You can do dynamic operations for any question type except the static content and end of survey questions. And to create a dynamic operation, you're going to start by checking this add dynamic operations using JavaScript, kind of a mouthful, under advanced operations. And I lost the example there, but I'll display another one. And then you would select whether or not the operation is a calculation or a validation. So if you're doing a calculation, your JavaScript will run when the page loads in order to come up with a value that will populate this question. If you choose to do a validation, then the script is going to run when you try to proceed from the page to make sure that the value that the mobile user entered is correct. So you saw a snippet there of the JavaScript. We can scroll down and look at another example. But don't be intimidated by the JavaScript. If you used our response validation feature, we are going to have a link to an article that has a lot of examples for a lot of the common scenarios that you might want to do calculations or validations for with the variables called out so that you can adjust them to your use case. And also, of course, if you don't see your scenario in our article on our customer support site, you can always write in to support@TaroWorks.org and we can come up with that JavaScript snippet for you and also put it in our article to share with other customers. So this is a really powerful feature, and like the quote goes, with great power comes great responsibility. What we'll do when you enter a JavaScript snippet is when you save, we'll confirm that it's valid JavaScript. There aren't any syntax errors. You're not referencing a question that doesn't exist. But other than that, the JavaScript will run on the mobile side. So your best practice stays the same with these advanced operations as it does in the current state. You always, always, always test your jobs before you deploy them to your mobile users. And just to make sure that the JavaScript has the expected behavior that you intend. So that's a peek at what it looks like on the back end. Some other examples you may want to do with validations include comparing whether the sum of many fields equal another field. So for example, you may have a few questions in your survey like the number of males in the household, the number of females in the household, and then maybe you also want to ask, kind of as an auditing question, the total number of households, or total number of members in the household. You can create a validation rule to make sure that the total household members equals the sum of those gender question responses. You can also validate dates. So for example, if you're scheduling a date for when you'll meet with an interviewee next, you can use dynamic operations to validate that the date entered is greater than today, or if you have a cadence that you'd like your mobile users to follow, how often they visit their mobile users, you can set up ranges that fall in line with those business rules. You can also enter a date of birth for a person or do validations on a date of birth if you have business rules requiring your interviewees be a certain age. So if I want everyone we're working with to be 18 years or older, we can run a validation rule to say the date of birth entered needs to be at least 18 years before today. Finally, if you have used our response validation feature before, you can use dynamic operations to do similar validations and also provide a custom error message for your users. That's helpful. So some of the additional calculation examples include generating offline unique identifiers. So we saw an example of generating a single ID in a sales order, but you can also do this for repeating sections by using a reference to the instance of the repeat. So in our sales order example, we could have also created unique identifiers for the sales order line items. You can calculate in default dates. So this could mean forcing a date value to be today's date or calculating a new date from a previous date value. You can sum across and within repeating sections like we saw in the sales order demo. And dynamic operations can also be used in this way with all types of mathematical operations to calculate yields or come up with defect rates or use local conversion rates for agricultural scenarios. You can also perform operations on strings, like passing the names of each member of a household from one repeat section into another to ask additional details about each individual. So dynamic operations is a really powerful feature, and it's going to allow you to greatly customize your surveys in order to meet your organization's needs. So I'll pause here and see if there's any questions about the first feature.
Yeah, Erin, we had a question from Jesse at Various Solutions. So the question is, are there any limitations to this, or is it that if we can script it, then it can be done?
Great question. So you do have a limit as far as the length of the JavaScript that you can enter. So I believe that's 50,000 characters. And you do have a limit, to when you're being limited in when this JavaScript is going to be run. So it either needs to be before the page is loaded or when the page is loaded or upon leaving the page. But other than that, there aren't, you can write whatever JavaScript you like into that snippet. I don't know if Kay's on the call, if I've missed any other limitations. But I think that's it.
Great. We had a good question from Hannah at the Grameen Foundation. So some of our users might be also using regex. So which one gets triggered first, min, maximum validations, regex, or the JavaScript section? So the sample that she gives is, sorry, let me just finish this. If someone sets the minimum to 3, can you assume that the values I'll be entered will be 3 and above?
Excellent question. Let me pull up the exact order of operations real quick so I can share them. We also have an article released on how these order of operations work with the next feature that we're going to cover, which is hidden questions. Give me just a moment. Okay. So if skip logic is defined for a question, then no validation is done for the question. So the question is skipped. If the skip logic is not present, then the number or the min-max is done. If that passes, then response validation is done. And then if that passes, then dynamic operations is done. Does that answer the question, Hannah? And we'll include that order of operations in the article as well.
She says yes, thanks.
Great. Any other questions on dynamic ops? All right, go on to the next one. So starting in our last release, you could pass multiple records from the drill down hierarchy into a tabular unlimited repeat section. So that's a mouthful, so let's do a quick review on the terminology. When I say unlimited repeat section, this means the mobile user can complete a particular section of a survey as many times as they like. A limited repeat section would be driven by a numerical response from a previous question. So for example, how many members do you have in your household? If you respond 3, you can drive a repeat section to repeat 3 times for the details of each of those members. When I say tabular, this means that the repeat section is displayed as a table. So each iteration of the repeat section would be a row, and each question in the section would be a column. A non-tabular repeat section displays in the same manner as the rest of the survey. So we've expanded on our initial release in a couple of ways. We can now handle multiple repeat sections or different sections of different types, repeat, non-repeat, using that feature of being able to pass in multiple records from the drill down hierarchy. And we can also allow many records to be passed in to a non-tabular repeat section as well. So this is super helpful when you need to leverage skip logic within your repeat section. So let's take a look at an example. I have an attendance job where I'm going to create attendance records for all the members of a savings group. Have some header level information. And then rather than seeing all of the savings group members in a table, I want to review the information individually, so I can use skip logic. So if someone did attend the meeting, then I want to gather their signature to confirm that they actually were there, prove they were actually there. And if not, then I don't. So if you tried this to set something like this up in pre-TaroWorks 4.5, behavior you would have seen is when you proceeded from one iteration of a repeat section to the next, it would actually prompt the mobile user, do you want to repeat or do you want to continue? So to use that successfully, the mobile user would have to know how many records they selected in order to know how many times to agree to repeat the section. So we've removed that, and the section non-tabular format repeat section will now repeat as many times as you've selected records in the drill down hierarchy. Okay. Any questions on that? Sounds like there's no question. All right, great. Now we'll move on to hidden questions. So we've also added the ability to remove or hide questions from the mobile user's view. This helps you streamline your surveys by allowing the administrator to still set responses for, or set values for responses the mobile user doesn't necessarily need to see. So the best example of this is unique identifiers that you may use in a survey to update records in Salesforce. So actually, if we go back and look at the attendance survey that we just looked at, what we were doing in this job is creating new attendance records for existing savings group members in our system. So the best practice when you're referencing or updating records that already exist in Salesforce, you want to do that with some unique identifier. We wouldn't, for example, want to use the name to update records because you might have 2 people with the same name. So we were using a field called member ID, which in this instance is an auto number that looks like the format of MEM001, MEM002, which, let's say, doesn't mean anything, doesn't add any value for our mobile user to have exposure to that number or that ID. But we do want to use it so that we can make sure that we are updating the correct record. So it's a great example of a question we might want to hide. So to hide it, we just check it as hidden. There are also other examples of wanting to use this where you want to hard code values into your responses or your updates that you're creating in Salesforce. Any questions on hidden questions? All right. Finally, this is a big one for our TaroWorks customers that have lots of jobs and lots of surveys. we've added folders to both the Jobs and Surveys tabs in Salesforce to help you organize and navigate your work. So you're going to be able to create folders and then filter on them. So just a quick demo of how quick and easy it is to create folders. You just go to the TaroWorks Folders tab, give your folder a name, essentially a label you're going to tag your job or your surveys with. You're going to create one for surveys. And then now, after you create that folder, in your Surveys tab, you'll be able to tag different surveys with that folder name. So for example, if I wanted to add this return job or survey to the sales folder, then it's as quick as that. And now I can sort based on the folder, and I can also filter. So hopefully for our customers with a high volume of surveys and jobs, this will help you navigate these better. And then of course you can also further filter on status, like in the current state. So just to clarify, these folders don't have any impact on the mobile side. This is for your TaroWorks administrators. Any questions on folders? Okay, we've made a couple of other improvements I just wanted to call out. This isn't all of them, but these are the ones that may impact existing customers. So in TaroWorks 4.5, for all records that are created with the TaroWorks app, the owner of that record is now going to be the mobile user themselves, or the TaroWorks partner user themselves. In the current state, or pre-TaroWorks 4.5 versions, the owner is actually the creator of the survey that is being used to create those records. So this may not be relevant to you if you don't use role hierarchies or sharing roles or leverage that ownership for security purposes, but for those of you who do, I just wanted to call this out. We've also added some functionality where your drill down hierarchy can start at any object level within a hierarchy of data that's been assigned to the mobile user. So an example of this, today, pre-TaroWorks 4.5, if I assign regions, for example, to mobile users, my TaroWorks jobs need to start at the region level as well. For some of our customers, if you have a job where the hierarchy drill down looks like region, district, savings group member. For some of our customers, there's such a high volume of data, it's actually helpful to have all those layers anyway, because then you're not looking at such an overwhelming volume of data at once. You're kind of filtering it down little by little. For some of our customers, a single mobile user actually isn't dealing with that much data, so it's not that helpful to have to go through different levels of the drill down in your job. So now, if you wanted to, you could assign regions to your mobile users and then start your job maybe at the savings group level, like we saw in the demo. And the very first view or list of savings groups that the mobile user would have to choose from would be all the savings groups that have a relationship with the region that they've been assigned. Any questions on either of those?
Erin, as people are maybe thinking about that, we did have a question about folders. If you could
sure.
switch back to that. The question is from Jesse and it's, is there any security around folders?
There isn't yet. Let's put it as simple as that. So if you wanted to create kind of controls or sharing rules around folders or the surveys in them, it would be standard Salesforce functionality. We don't have any TaroWorks specific features to enable that. Great question. Any other questions on jobs or on the other new improvements? All right. So those are the major features we wanted to walk through today. I wanted to do a public service announcement about the upgrade itself. If there's anyone in the call who's never done an upgrade before on their own and you feel uncomfortable, you just want someone to walk you through it, please reach out to us at support. We'd be happy to help. With that said, the steps to upgrade are going to be published on our customer support site. So as long as you go through all the steps listed there, you should have no problem at all. If you're on a version before TaroWorks 4.4, so I'm actually going to show the articles in our support center. If, for example, you're on TaroWorks 4.2 today, you need to go through all of the upgrade steps for TaroWorks 4.3, and then 4.4, and then 4.5 when it's released. The last step is to download the file on the mobile device. I like to do that as a TaroWorks administrator and just run a quick test after each upgrade. But as far as your actual mobile users are concerned, you don't need to tell them to sync until you're done with all of your back-end work. So that way they only need to sync once, and they'll pull down that new TaroWorks 4.5 APK. That file is usually about 10 megabytes, so it's advisable that your mobile users are in a place of decent connectivity if possible. Also, as always, when you go to install a new managed package for TaroWorks, always map the new security permissions to your TaroWorks profiles. This is how your existing users are going to get access to the new functionality that's released. So actually, let me just show you a quick screenshot. It's the first step every time after you, when you're installing the managed package. So you're going to install for specific profiles and then also map the TaroWorks partner user level permissions to the TaroWorks partner user profile, and same for TaroWorks user. So for some reason, this is a very commonly missed step, and if you do skip it, then you have to manually map all those new permissions. So try to avoid that. All right, I think, unless there are any other questions, that's all I had to cover today. Anything else? If not, thank you everyone very much for joining. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us via these email addresses or to check out our Zendesk site for documentation and more information. Thank you very much. Have a great day.